Hey guys, what's up? It's Chris. So I realize that most of my viewers like watching me scrape stuff, and it seems to be the best thing that I've been able to convey. I probably don't do the best job at it, but I am. I'm not like a professional teacher or anything like that. So hopefully there are some of you that do find my videos helpful. So I appreciate that, and that's what makes me keep doing it. And I wanted to touch up on this whole Selenium thing. I don't like the way I did the last 3 videos. It was like a 3 video process. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to attack a particular problem that I'm dealing with. So um, I'll just show you just an example on how you might do something. So anyway, that's what this entire project is going to be, just a sample of what you may do. Like it's just kind of a made-up situation. So here we go. First things first, I'm going to go ahead. I'm using Visual Studio, but I'm going to add a Python class. You just do that however you do that with your Python editor. I'm going to name this, I'll name it, I'll just name it Get Playlist. Okay. And here we have a class. Alright, now that we have our class, first things first, I'm going to import some stuff here. I hope that we're going to use all of the imports here, but it's just something that I tend to do because I usually know I'm going to need at least a few of them. I did have some questions in my previous videos on why I imported certain things and didn't use it, and ultimately it was just because I was saving files over top of other files, and I didn't really take out the imports that I no longer needed. But we're going to import RE for regular expression module, and then we're going to do mechanize, because I will need to fill out a form. And then we're going to be using Selenium, so it's going to be from Selenium, import WebDriver, import time, and then from Selenium we have to explicitly import certain things that we plan on using to help us out. So from Selenium dot WebDriver dot common dot keys, import keys. And then from Selenium dot WebDriver dot common dot action chains, import action chains. And then from Selenium dot desired capabilities, import desired capabilities. Now we may or may not use this one, but just in case. Alright, so what I want to do is I need to get, in this example, say like we wanted to get the top songs from, let me see. I had an example here, but I'm gonna, crap. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Billboard. Alright, so let's go to Billboard top rock songs. So first things first is we need to say that this is the URL that we want Selenium to grab. So we're going to copy that URL, and then inside of our class we're going to create a method, and we'll just call it define, we'll say get top songs. And what the parameters that the method takes is itself, which is whatever object is calling this method is self. So it's just a thing that you have to get used to. And then it's going to accept, at this point, let's not accept anything. We'll just call it. So we'll even say, just so when our program is running, we know what it's doing, we'll say print working Billboard. And then let's go ahead and open our browser with WebDriver. So we'll say WebDriver dot, we'll say Firefox. So we'll open it with Firefox. You can use Chrome, Internet Explorer, which I don't recommend. Firefox, or there's going to be another alternative that I'll go over in a bit, but that's what we're going to do. Now we'll say browser.get, and then this is where we're going to put in the URL that we pasted, or that we copied. So we're going to get that. And let's go ahead and time sleep. This is where we're using the time module. Let's sleep for 5 seconds so that we give the page enough time to load. Okay. Now, let's just go ahead and take a look at the page that we're trying to scrape here. So if we're trying to get the #1 song, what we need to do is we need to try to figure out how we can do it, because you can normally say you can right click and inspect element in Chrome, and when you do that you right click, you could say copy XPath and paste, but you see that it has this node here, so that's going to be a problem. So I'll explain why that's a problem, because you don't really want to deal with absolute paths when it's XPaths that you're dealing with. So we'll say, just so I can show you what I'm talking about, we'll say top rap. So let's look at the top rap songs, and we'll compare that XPath with the #1 song for this list. So we right click the element and say copy XPath. This is assuming you're using Chrome. And when you notice that it has these nodes, so there's no way that you can predict what the nodes are going to be and things like that. So that is not a good way to scrape that song. Now, what we need to do is we need to look for something that we can identify. And you can see that this thing says up here, let me see. Okay, look at the span class here. Span class chart position, and then it says position static. It looks like it doesn't. If we go down, not everyone has that exact same span, but most of them have, or actually all of them have this span class chart position. Now this second class that gets called in is different on different items, and I'm not really sure the significance of that. We could look into it more, but it's not really important to me. All I need to know is that this span class chart position, I need to find that, and that lets me know that we're at the 1 position, and then I need the next H1 element, which is going to be the song title. So if that's what I want to get, what I would do is I would search by XPath. So let's say title, we'll name it a variable title equals, and I'll say browser.find element by XPath, and then in here, this is where it takes a lot of getting used to. I'm still trying to get used to XPaths myself, but you can call in these 2 forward slashes, because if you had 1 forward slash, it would basically mean it basically starts from the top of the DOM tree and works down, so it incorporates like every element. But if you have 2 forward slashes, then it goes directly to where it finds this this actual item, I guess, without including all of the elements. And maybe I have a bad understanding of how that works, but the bottom line is that you want to start off with these 2 forward slashes, and then whatever item it is that you're looking for. Some people, you'll see they do this, which means anything, but or they'll do this, which means any item that matches that. In this case, we're saying any span that matches this, and we're going to put a square bracket next to it, and what we're going to do is say contains, and then after we do that, we need a parenthesis and then an @ symbol and class. Now you can do ID as well if it were an ID that we were dealing with. In this case, we're dealing with a class, so we're saying class, and then we're going to do a comma and a space, and then this is where we put the text that we found. And if you remember correctly, it was chart position. And then we're going to close off our parenthesis, we're going to close off our square bracket, and then we're going to say /text. And when you want to do the text, you actually need to say open and close parentheses. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to do another contain statement here. So we're going to say the text contains, And then here we're going to give it a dot symbol, which means that it could be any element. But and we know it's an H1 actually, but or not an H1. We know it's a span element, but what we're saying is contains, because we could specifically say, like, bear with me, I'm actually going to confuse you. I apologize. Just try to watch what I'm doing here. I'm going to get into that in another video because that's going to be a little bit too confusing. But anyway, we're going to say we could have a variable here. But instead of doing a variable, I'm just going to hard code a number in here, and we'll just say number 1, because we know that the number 1 position exists there. And then what we want to do after we do that, we're going to close off our square, or our parenthesis, our square bracket, and then we're going to do one more element in the XPath, and we're going to say get the following H1. And then close off the statement, and then just say dot text. So that's a big XPath statement, but what we're saying is find that span class where it says chart position, and there's multiple, so it's going to find the first one starting at the top of the DOM tree, and it finds that first one, and it says in order for it to know the first from the second from the third, we actually explicitly say, and then find the text within that span tag that contains the actual text 1. So, I mean, if the span class contained Chris's tutorial, we could say Chris's tutorial or whatever. But in this case, we know that the span class that we're looking for contains 1. So we'll say get the following H1 text, and then we'll say print title. So let's see if this thing works. I'm using Visual Studio, so I have to set up this class that we just created as the startup class. So I'm going to right click. If you're using Visual Studio, you just say set as startup file. Another thing too, since we have a class, we actually have to instantiate the actual class and make an object from that. So if you don't know object-oriented programming, this is a good little tutorial. To access the class and its methods, we need to create a class object. So we'll say my class object equals, and then we'll say get playlist, the name of the class. Open and close parentheses. Now my class object is an object made from get playlist, and I can access its methods now, which is get top songs. Alright, now we can run the program. And you can see, so we know what our program's doing. In case it gets hung up or something, it's saying working billboard. One frustrating thing about Selenium is it's not the fastest thing in the world. Alright, so sorry, I'm eating a gummy cola. So you can see that it found radioactive which is the current #1 rock song right now. And that's it. So it worked exactly the way that we wanted to. So if we wanted to store those contents into like a database or put it in a blog or whatever, we could do that. If you want to get the top 10 songs, you can even programmatically put that in there and say something like x equals 1. And you can put a while statement here, while x is less than 11, meaning while it's 10 or less. We'll say this, and I can say, instead of this, we'll say string x, because x is an integer and it's not going to work with a string since we're concatenating this to the string. And then as it's going through the loop, it'll print, starting with #1, it'll print that, and then we need to make sure we're adding 1 to x so that it's counting upwards. So if I save it and I'll run this, yeah, like I said, Selenium is not the fastest thing in the world. I mean, there's been a lot of complaints about how to speed it up. One of the things that you can do to speed it up is there's a direction being moved into where you're still essentially using Selenium and Selenium's capabilities, but you're actually doing it and without actually pulling up a browser, so they call that headless. There's certain things called like Phantom JavaScript, Ghost.py, Casper, and a couple of others that are going through this entire process without actually pulling up a web browser, so it's a lot easier, or at least it's a lot quicker. It's actually not easier because you can't really see what it's doing. So this thing normally doesn't take this long. I don't know why the hell it's hung up like that, but it's still just, it's the goddamn page that's taking forever to load. Alright, so that took longer than what I would say it normally takes. Maybe just right now with it might be peak traffic or something, I don't know. But the most of what you were waiting for there was the page to load. So let's go ahead and try another thing real quick just to see if we can make it a little bit quicker. So I'm going to close this. And one thing that you can do is go to Google and let's look up Phantom JavaScript, which is really just PhantomJS. And you see this headless WebKit for Java script. So you just download it here. I've already downloaded it. What it does, it gives you a zip directory and you unzip it and then you just place it anywhere. Now where I placed it in my C colon and then in projects, and then down here in just projects I put PhantomJS. Now PhantomJS, this is literally just what was in the zipped up directory. So literally you just pull everything out of that unzipped directory and you just put it in this new directory that you created, so you don't have to install anything. Now when you're calling Phantom JavaScript, you're not going to be calling WebDriver Firefox. Instead you're going to be calling WebDriver.PhantomJS. And then in here, instead of just open and close parentheses, you have to actually give the path to where it can find that that thing that I just showed you, this PhantomJS application file, it has to know where that is at. So you have to give an absolute path to that. And then you'll see just a second. So now this should run without actually having to pull up the browser. So let's test this. So as you can see, it's still not the quickest thing in the world, but that was probably 10 times quicker than Selenium. So, just that, well, it's still somewhat Selenium, but it was 10 times quicker than actually having to pull that up in the browser. So that is definitely an alternative. And you might ask, well, why not use Phantom JavaScript for everything? Well, the Phantom JavaScript, I can tell you that the goddamn click functions don't work right in this, at least using Python, in this Python Selenium. I can't get the goddamn thing to click on anything, so I have to actually create like a click script so that this thing knows how to actually click a link and things like that. So I find that very inconvenient, and it's something that I'll probably make a video on here pretty soon. But if you're not actually clicking on links and things like that, then I would say that Phantom JavaScript is definitely the way to go, and you can even use both like interchangeably within your program. If you do decide to actually pull up another browser, or you want to request another page and you want to kill the current session, it's just simply browser.quit. So you want to get in the habit of doing that, so that way you don't have like 15 browser windows opened up, which will be slowing down your computer. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish this video here. Hopefully this is a little bit better of an explanation on how you can scrape Ajax sites with Selenium, and also with the headless Selenium using Phantom JavaScript. Anyway, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Bye.